Hello there and welcome to our nightly news program, coming to you live on All 24 News here from Algiers. Next are the headlines. Algerian president receives the Speaker of the Saudi Shura Council. Riyadh appreciates the tireless endeavors to materialize the common aspirations between the two countries into a field action plan, and praises Algeria's efforts regionally and internationally in supporting the Palestinian cause and backing Saudi Arabia's orientations. Also coming up, trade unions in Morocco hold the government responsible for destroying the middle class. The number of poor people in the kingdom has risen to 3 million, and reports prove the involvement of Aziz Akanouche in a corruption case within $1.5 billion deal. Also ahead, the Zionist entity bombs Gaza in retaliation to Palestinian factions' rockets across the border as tension rise over death of Khadr Adnan after 87 days of hunger strike. And violent confrontations and airstrikes extend on areas in Khartoum. The Sudanese army and the Rapid Support Forces agreed to a 7-day truce starting from next Thursday. Hello again and welcome to the details. First off in our news, President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, received on Tuesday the Speaker of the Shura Council, or the Consultative Assembly of Saudi Arabia, Dr. Abdullah bin Mohammed bin Ibrahim Al-Sheikh. The audience took place at the Presidency of the Republic in the presence of the Speaker of the Council of the Nation, or the Upper House of Parliament, Salah Goudil, and the Principal Private Secretary to the Presidency, Mr. Mohammed Nadir Larbawi. In a statement after the reception, the Saudi Shura Council Speaker praised the content of his meeting with Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune, appreciating the relentless efforts to materialize the common aspirations between the two countries.
I had the honor of meeting His Excellency President Tebboune and conveyed to him the greetings of the custodian of the two holy mosques and His Highness the Crown Prince. I spoke with His Excellency the President about the relations between the Shura Council in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the two councils in the sister Republic of Algeria, the National Assembly and the People's Assembly. We have listened and benefited from the directives and presentations of the history of this honorable country, as well as the aspirations and what the President, the Algerian government, and the brotherly Algerian people are striving for, and all that is being implemented now. His Excellency was briefed on what is now being done in Saudi Arabia in terms of all political and economic aspects, and all on those aspects that gone beyond the borders of the kingdom to the Arab and Islamic countries, and even countries of the world.
The Saudi Shura Council Speaker also praised Algeria's regional and international efforts, especially its support for the Palestinian cause, in addition to supporting the general directions of Saudi Arabia, noting the continuous coordination between the two countries on various issues.
I thanked His Excellency the President for the efforts made by Algeria in support of the Arab cause, the Palestinian cause, and for the support of the kingdom in what it seeks in all aspects, as Algeria was one of the first countries to initiate support for these directions. There is continuous coordination with Algeria on many of these aspects. I was happy with this meeting. I hope the relations between the kingdom and Algeria will be successful and repaid.
Algerian Army Chief of Staff Major General Said Chengriha received on Tuesday Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff of the Jordanian Armed Forces, Major General Youssef Hunayti, who is on a working visit to Algeria at the head of an important military delegation. A statement by the Algerian Ministry of Defense indicated that during this meeting, the two sides discussed security challenges in the Arab region and the African continent and exchanged views on various issues of common concern and ways to enhance military cooperation between the two countries. Major General Said Chengri has stressed that the visit is a favorable opportunity to advance joint military cooperation to the highest levels in a way that benefits both parties.
Today, I'm happy to receive you at the headquarters of the People's National Army. I welcome you and your companion delegation in Algeria. We consider your visit as a favorable opportunity to work together in order to advance joint military cooperation to the highest levels and for the benefits of both parties. Your visit comes in the context of the visit that His Majesty King Abdullah II paid to Algeria in December 2022 at the invitation of his brother, President Abdelmajid Tebboune. These visits, aimed at consolidating the bonds of brotherhood and friendship between the two countries, have allowed the establishment of cooperative relations in many sectors.
Algerian Ministry of Energy and Mines revealed Algeria's and EU's intention to expand their strategic partnership in the energy sector to include thermal sources and waste recycling, given the positive results of the joint sectoral support program implemented since 2019. Zarafa Jenny reports.
After 4 years of implementation, the Algerian European Union support program for the renewable energy sector concludes with tangible results that allow the two parties to build cooperation in the field of the alternative energies by designing 8 effective work programs to improve energy efficiency in many sectors.
The activities carried out within the framework of this program have made it possible to establish high-level exchanges on various topics of common interest in the field of renewable energies and energy efficiency. This resulted in building real common teams and improving the level of mutual understanding in these areas.
The Algerian-European Strategic Partnership aims at accelerating the use of renewable energies, especially geothermal energy and energy recovery from waste, as part of promoting joint investments under the principle of energy and sustainable industrial development.
We affirm the readiness of the European Union to advance cooperation with Algeria in the field of energy and mines by strengthening our support for the development of renewable energies here, improving energy efficiency, as well as for the development of an energy industry with sustainable growth.
This multi-sectoral partnership affirms Algeria's commitment to continue its active participation at the international level to reach a green economy.
This technical assistance should promote the development of renewable energy sources through the transfer of expertise and technology and build national capacities to meet the challenges of energy and ecological transformation.
The Algerian European Union support program for the renewable energy sector, which increases European investment amounting to 10 million euros in Algeria, is a first step in a long path towards the implementation of huge and strategic investments between the two parties.
To a different topical news now. Head of the Presidential Council in Libya, Mohammed Al-Manfi, and head of the National Unity Government, Abdulhamid Al-Dbeiba, discussed on Tuesday a number of security files in the country. A statement from the Presidential Council, which indicated that the two parties discussed the follow-up to the plan of the Presidency of the General Staff with regard to the security situation in the Zawiya municipality. The Libyan officials also touched on the comprehensive mechanism for determining spending priorities for the current year and evaluating development for the past year. The Moroccan newspaper As-Sahifa published a long investigation in which it accused Prime Minister Aziz Akhannouch of a corruption and violation related to the seawater desalination plant project in Casablanca. The investigation confirmed that Akhannouch entered as a participant to win the deal, hiding behind the Spanish company Asewina to disguise the role of the Africa Gas Group, which he owns. The Moroccan newspaper also added that Akhannouch fell into a blatant conflict of interest as he was under pressure from his Zionist partners to control the water security of the Moroccans, as he is the head of the company's management and his finance minister is the supervisor of the committee that will determine the beneficiary of the deal. On the occasion of Labor Day, Moroccan trade union activists organized mass demonstrations in various cities in the country, asking the government to limit the sharp increase in prices and better purchasing power and socio-economic situation of the working class. More details with Salma Nasib.
On the occasion of the worldwide celebration of Workers' Day on May 1st, the Moroccan government has highlighted its firm commitment to continue fighting for a better situation for Moroccan workers, as hundreds of trade union activists rallied in the capital to protest against declining purchasing power, soaring inflation, and rocketing food prices. For his part, Morocco's Minister of Economic Inclusion showed his full willingness to involve trade unions in planning for better working conditions in the North African country.
The agreement on the formation of this committee reflects the conviction of the government and the social partners to pursue action in order to find innovative solutions to all the social dossiers on the table of dialogue.
Rallies held in Rabat, Agadir, Casablanca, and Marrakesh, and some other cities in the country were peaceful street marches. Their main demands were higher wages, better purchasing power, and socio-economic situation for working class. Marches were initiated by the main trade union in the country, including the General Union of Moroccan Workers, the Moroccan Labor Union, the Democratic Labor Confederation, and the National Labor Union of Morocco.
Today, we are demanding social justice, freedom, and reorganization of the socio-economic conditions in Morocco, given that we are facing a very serious situation.
Today we are celebrating May Day at the National Labor Union of Morocco to defend the citizens eroding purchasing power. We are here to defend every citizen, every employee, and every civil servant.
Regardless of the ambiguous situation in the country, the Moroccan government held a round of social dialogue with trade unions and employers, and it was agreed to resume talks next September to agree on action plans for the working class.
And in new development, fresh rocket sirens sound in southern towns around the border with the Gaza Strip in occupied Palestine. The rocket attacks come as the Zionist Air Force is carrying out strikes in the Palestinian enclave after 37 rockets were launched at the Zionist entity after Palestinian factions sent rockets across the border following the death of Khadr Adnan. There are no immediate reports of injuries in the rocket attack. Throughout Tuesday, the rocket attacks were concentrated on Sderot and other towns close to the border with Gaza. The Palestinian prisoner Adnan Khadr died in Zionist jail at Tuesday dawn after more than 86-day hunger strike. His death sparked angry protests across Palestine and reactions from the Arab world. Islam said.
This is Khadr Adnan, a 44-year-old Palestinian detainee who was pronounced dead early Tuesday after 87 days of hunger strike inside Zionist prisons.
The assassination of Khadr Adnan is a Zionist crime by excellence, and the occupation must bear responsibility for the consequences of his deliberate assassination. We as the Palestinian resistance say clearly that even if the means are yet to be determined, the Palestinian people and all our revolutionaries everywhere will avenge his killing.
He was arrested on February 5th and was detained without charges.
Our message to all the free people, to all of whom left Sheikh Khadr Adnan alone and disappointed him during his battle, and to all who didn't believe us when we said that Sheikh is dying and he is in his last moments, here we are. He is a martyr now. What about you? Who will you keep visiting homes of martyrs and prisoners? Who will visit their families? Sorrow is not only in my house, it is in every house of free people and houses of martyrs and prisoners. All of them will miss Sheikh, who used to visit them wherever they are.
After his death, the Zionist occupation authorities raised the level of alert in jails and closed cells in front of the movement of prisoners. It also imposed severe restrictions against the prisoners in case they went on hunger strike. Adnan's murder sparked outrage across Palestine. Hundreds of Palestinians marched in several areas in the occupied territories as protests against his death. The protesters raised pictures of the martyr and demanded justice for the Palestinian freedom fighters. detained in Zionist jails.
The assassination of Khadr Adnan is a Zionist crime par excellence, and the occupation must bear responsibility for the consequences of his deliberate assassination. We, as the Palestinian resistance, say clearly that even the means are yet to be determined. The Palestinian people and all our revolutionaries everywhere will avenge his killing.
This heinous crime triggered responses from the Palestinian resistance factions, who announced on Tuesday afternoon that they bombed the settlements around the Gaza Strip with rocket barrages. The Palestinian Foreign Ministry issued a statement holding the Zionists accountable for Adnan's killing, calling for a detailed investigation to his death and stressing that it will submit the file of this crime to the International Criminal Court. On its part, the Arab League, through its General Secretariat, condemned the crime and considered it as the Zionist way in committing slow and deliberate killings amid the silence of the international community. Such death is the first since 1992. Adnan from Araba is the father of 9 children. He was arrested 12 times during his lifetime and spent around 8 years in Zionist jails. He went on a strike several times in protest against his detention without any charge.
The Organization of Islamic Cooperation affirmed its support for the Palestinian prisoners and held the Zionist occupation responsible for murdering Adnan Khadr, condemning the Zionist systematic policy of taking arbitrary measures as well as its inhumane treatment of Palestinian prisoners. The Islamic Cooperation Organization called for the international bodies to put pressure on the Zionist entity to stop its aggressive violations of Palestinian rights. During the Palestinian Ministers' Council, Prime Minister Mohammed Shtia condemned the crime against Adnan Khadr, accusing the Zionist occupation of deliberately assassinating him, especially with the refusal to request his release and his medical neglect, despite his dangerous health condition.
يحمل مجلس وزراء الاحتلال
The Israeli occupation and its prison administration carried out a deliberate assassination against the prisoner, Khadr Adnan, by rejecting his request for his release, neglecting his medically, and keeping him in his cell despite the seriousness of his health condition.
The Palestinian Prime Minister also addressed those celebrating the 75th anniversary of what is termed the establishment of the Zionist occupation by saying that this occasion represents the anniversary of the Nakba of Palestine and that the Zionist entity is a colonial one established by Western countries to serve their interests.
أود أن أذكركم بأن ذكرى إنشاء إسرائيل هي ذكرى
I would like to remind you that the anniversary of Israel is the anniversary of Nakba of Palestine, and that Israel is an entity of colonialism established by Western countries to serve their interests. The state of Israel has been established over a ruin of 531 Palestinian villages and towns. It displaced Palestinians who have been in camps in Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, Gaza, the West Bank and Egypt for 75 years, living with the hope of returning to their homes.
A Syrian soldier was killed and 7 others, including 2 civilians, were wounded in a Zionist attack on Aleppo International Airport. Syrian media reported that Aleppo International Airport was out of service after the Zionist occupation carried out an air aggression with barrages of missiles from southeast Aleppo, targeting the airport and a number of points in the same vicinity. A new ceasefire agreement has been announced by the president of South Sudan, Salva Kiir, after he offered mediation between the warring factions in the country. Despite the ceasefire, plumes of smoke rose over the skyline of Sudan amidst exchanges of violation of the ceasefire between the Rapid Support Forces and the Sudanese army. Usama Ayadi with more.
After 17 days of fighting and intense clashes between the Sudanese military faction, a 7-day truce has been announced from the neighboring country South Sudan. President Salva Kiir had offered mediation between the warring factions of the conflict and succeeded to convince the parties of the ceasefire. South Sudan's president insisted that a longer ceasefire should be seriously taken into consideration and underlined the need to name representatives for peace talks.
You have displaced the youth, women, the elderly are sleeping in the streets, in garbage dumps. We go to the bathroom in the open areas. You have displaced us and ruined our country. May God take revenge on you.
Despite the ceasefire, clashes occurred and sounds of skirmishes could be heard from different spots of the country. The conflicting parties had exchanged accusations of violating ceasefire and pushing for more violence. The UN, meanwhile, persists on warning that conflict in Sudan can affect the entire region.
For WFP, our biggest concern right now is actually that if the conflict in Sudan doesn't stop soon, the ripple effect across the region is significant.
Warnings against the growing number of refugees also came from the international community, including numerous international organizations. In fact, due to the war, the miserable life conditions, and the intensification of fighting, more than 100,000 people were forced to flee the country, while the number is expected to rise.
So over 100,000 refugees are estimated to be among those who have now crossed to neighboring countries, including Sudanese refugees, South Sudanese returning, and other nationalities who were themselves refugees in Sudan. Alongside governments and partners, UNHCR, the UN Refugee Agency, has determined an initial planning figure of more than 800,000 refugees and returnees that may flee Sudan to neighboring countries.
Countries from different corners of the world are still racing against time to repatriate their nationals, while local residents are left to face their unfortunate fate, the direst situation since the military coup. Some of the victims of this civil war are stranded, and others internally displaced. Yet again, hope for a serious move to end this unbearable situation still arises.
According to French Interior Minister, police have arrested 540 people during International Labour Day rallies in France. And in that, more than 400 law enforcers were also injured in sporadic clashes with protesters. Tensions rose between police and protesters in the Paris rally, and police officers used tear gas and beat protesters in the capital and other cities as well. Ukrainians are fighting for control over the city of Bakhmut, and a long-promised counter-offensive is in the works by the Ukrainian military. The United States and the European Union are providing military aid and ammunition to support Ukraine, while on the Russian side, efforts are being made to increase missile production. Here's Sofian Kintori.
Both Russian and Ukrainian forces are pushing to provide aid to their forces on the ground as the situation escalates. The city of Bakhmut finds itself in a precarious position as Russian and Ukrainian forces clash on its streets. The Ukrainian military has vowed to resist the Russian forces and not give up the city of Bakhmut. A long-promised counter-offensive is in the works, which Kiev hopes it will change the dynamic of the war. The battle for Bakhmut is crucial for both sides, as control over the city would provide a significant advantage in the conflict.
Despite all the advice and predictions, we'll continue to hold our positions in Bakhmut, destroy the fighters of the Wagner private military company, and destroy the other most combat-capable units of the Russian army. Furthermore, we give our officers the opportunity for feedback, and we ourselves are preparing for further actions.
The United States, for its part, has announced a new military aid package for Ukraine worth $300 million, including short-range air-launched rocket missiles taken from U.S. Axis stocks. The European Union's executive is also planning to set aside over $550 million to increase ammunition production, supporting Ukrainians' counter-offensive. Despite these efforts, Ukrainians are still calling for fighter jets, claiming they are essential to the success of their counter-offensive.
So to be able to get these targets from the air, we need something which will be in the air, like aircrafts, and we're still not receiving them. There are different explanations, and most important is that we'll have to have time to prepare our pilots. But that's our argument. Let's start preparing pilots, train them until you make the political decision.
On the Russian side, Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu has urged a state-run company that produces missiles to double its output. This move comes amid speculation that Russia might be running low on ammunition.
The actions of Russian groupings of troops at a special operation largely depend on the timely replenishment of stocks of weapons, military equipment and weapons. The leadership of the country has set the task for defense enterprises to increase the pace and volume of production in a short time, and the necessary operational measures have been taken.
Russian President Vladimir Putin, on the other hand, said that Russia is willing to strive for life in annexed Ukrainian territories. Efforts are being made to build and repair roads, houses, educational, health care, and energy facilities in these regions.
All of this is only part of a large-scale work, which despite all the difficulties is already being actively carried out in Zaporizhia, the Kherson regions, and the Donbass. Roads, houses, educational, healthcare, and energy facilities are being built and repaired here. Industrial production and agricultural production are improving.
The conflict in Bakhmut is far from over, and both sides are determined to claim victory. The future of the city and its people remain uncertain as the battle for control continues.
Well, that's the end of our program. For more, you can always visit our social media platforms. From me and the rest of the team, thank you for watching. Goodbye for now.